I know what you're thinking. You might be judging me already because I am using some ready-made salsa verde. I would usually agree with you. I would make my salsa verde from scratch every time. It's way better. But living outside of Mexico, you don't always get tomatillos, especially where I live. I think I've seen them once maybe. Luckily, this one is made in Mexico. It's widely available. It's similar to Verdes or other brands. Also, I am trying something I've never tried before, so I'm cutting some corners, just testing this recipe. What I did here is using 1 jar of salsa verde, throw it in a pan, and I'm going to fill that jar with some water, usually around halfway. Then I'm going to shake it just to make sure I get all of that salsa and throw it back into my pan. Since these jars are kind of small, I'm using 2 of them. They might be a bit spicy, so if you cannot tolerate too spicy food, maybe you can stick to 1 and just add a bit more water. I am also adding some chicken stock. This is the equivalent of 1 cube. This is on the stove. It's on a 5 or 6 out of 9, so medium-high fire. I will keep it there. I want it to simmer for a bit. I also want to mix everything so that the chicken stock integrates. Now I will show you the star of this dish. This is something I found as bacon crisp. I would call it chicharron. In Spain you might call it torresno, and I think every country has a different name for it. I found this on my local Asian store, and what this is pork skin that has been deep fried. Again, I know what you're thinking, this sounds disgusting, but believe me, it's one of the best snacks there is. It's crispy, it's salty, it's airy, it's just everything you want a good crisp to be. Well, it usually is crispy, but in this case we're going to throw this into our sauce. And then the texture changes quite a bit, but this is a very common lunch to have in Mexico. Of course, we also make tacos out of that. My salsa verde is ready. It has been simmering for a bit. I'm just making sure there's no undissolved chicken stock. I'm mixing it a bit, and then we can continue. I will take my chicharron and throw it in the sauce. Usually these kind of salsas already have salt. Chicharron is quite salty, so I don't want to overdo it. I'm going to mix everything, and after we can taste and correct if it needs some salt. At this point you will hear a quite loud crackling, and that is the chicharron absorbing the sauce, so don't worry about it. Chicharron will absorb a lot of the sauce. It will become quite soggy, but you have to be patient because it will take some time. All we have to do right now is keep mixing, give it some time, keep it on the fire, and eventually we will get to the texture we want. Right now I am adding some more chicharron just to get the texture I wanted. Of course I'm going to steal one on the process. If I wanted to serve this the traditional way, just with some beans on the side, maybe some tortillas, and then the chicharron with the sauce, then I would leave it as it was, because there was quite enough sauce for me to serve a saucy plate. However, for this experiment, I want the chicharron to absorb as much of the sauce as it can, and I want it to be a bit dry. Since we are using this as a stuffing, I don't want too much liquid, because I've never done this kind of thing, so I don't want that to cause trouble. After a while, this is how my chicharron looks. I'm sure you can tell the difference in texture. I have been mixing this the whole time, just make sure it doesn't burn, make sure the sauce is distributed evenly. I also want to make the big pieces into smaller pieces. I can do it with a spoon, you don't really need much more. This was the point where I decided my chicharron is ready, I can set it aside and I can continue with the process. I moved my chicharron into a bowl because I want it to cool down a bit, and also because, as I said, you don't need much more than a spoon, and here it's easier to chop it. I do not want to overdo it, I don't want it to turn into a paste because I think the chunks are a quite nice texture, but the smaller the pieces you can make, the better. If you follow my videos, you probably know by now, I like going to the local Asian market, buying something and learn how to do it. So in this case, I bought these gyoza skins. These are frozen, I just threw them into the fridge a night before. By now they are ready to use, and I think these are quite convenient. They were really nice to use. I don't know how difficult it is to make the dough from scratch, but these come already cut, so you just have to put them together. If you grew up making this, or you are good at it, this is definitely the point where you judge me, because this is the first time I try. I don't think I did it so bad, but I'm sure there's room for improvement. To be honest, these were not as complicated as I thought they would be. What you need is to have some water next to you. I'm just dipping my finger and making sure I wet all the edge. What I did is throw my stuffing in there, and then you take one of the edges and start pinching. I find this a bit tricky to explain. I had to watch a few videos from different angles just to make sure I get the hang of it. The easiest way for me to understand is one of the sides keeps straight and the other side you keep pinching and pressing together. I don't know if this is the most used shape. Personally, it's the one I've seen the most, so I guess it's one of those popular ones. The more of these I made, the faster it went, but definitely the first ones were a struggle, and I had to practice a few times before they managed to look as pretty as this one. Of course, it's not perfect, but in my opinion, it's good enough, so I can continue. I know what you're thinking, because I thought about it when I was doing this myself. There must be an easier way to make them. I didn't try making many shapes, but I found these and I gave it a go. I think it might be one of the easiest to make. It also looks quite nice, but if I was making these just for myself, I probably would only use this shape. Idea is the same. Throw the stuffing in, put some water on the edges, and then just pinch everything together. With this shape, you don't have to worry about the folding, you don't have to worry about each folding to have the similar distance between each other. You just push everything together, you end up with this 3-sided gyoza, and that's pretty much it. All we have to do now is repeat the process until we are out of gyoza skins or stuffing. For cooking these gyozas, I'm using the same process as I usually do with the frozen ones. Personally, that's the only ones I've done before, but from what I read, the process should be the same. I have a warm pan, it's on a 6 or 7 out of 9. I added some oil, I'm adding all my dumplings. It's not sizzling yet, but what I want to do is to make the bottom crispy. After a couple minutes, these have the bottom quite crispy, and at this point we can add water. What I will do is add some water. Because the pan is hot, it will evaporate and make a nice steam bath. We don't want to add too much water, just a thin layer, and then we're going to close our lid. After that, we will wait for the water to evaporate in about 4 to 6 minutes. My gyozas have cooked now. Unfortunately, I have now learned that when you are closing them, you're adding the filling, you need to make the dough really close to the filling, otherwise you capture some air inside, and then when you cook them, they pop open. So these were not perfect, they opened a bit, but the dough cooked nicely. They get quite crispy on the bottom, so they were good enough that they didn't fall apart. They're a bit open, they don't look as pretty as they could, but they are still eatable. When I was reading a few recipes on how to make gyozas, I didn't see that detail mentioned, so if you're planning to make your own, I think that's a really good tip. All what's left now is to enjoy your gyozas. These were quite nice, really crispy bottom, delicious inside. And I served them with this jalapeno sauce. I already have the recipe in my channel. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to check it out. This is how I make these gyozas. It's the first time I'm doing them, so as you can see, I overstuffed them. The chicharron also got a bit more puffy with the steam, so they opened a bit. I had to kind of just pick the ones that didn't bust open, but it's just a matter of trying a few times, and I'm sure this gets better. But you get the idea. I really like this because I really like gyozas. Never tried doing them myself. I probably don't try to make the dough myself because this was so easy and it's pretty good. So I think it's just simple to get the ready-made these like layers of these, and I think it's great. I think this crispy button is quite nice. The top has been cooked also very nice. It's very soft, and well, the inside is a bit chewy. If you don't like this texture of chicharron, maybe this is not the one for you, but I think the texture improved a lot with the gyoza, with the steam, reducing it a lot, gets a bit rid of that kind of like super chewy, so it's a bit more of a compact kind of consistency. If you have the chicharron that has a bit more meat, then of course it will get a bit more crunchy, more, you know, like more with a texture inside, something to chew on. But personally, I really like them because I love chicharron. I like the sauce. You can also skip it because this has quite a lot of flavor, but I think it's nice to have something, you know, have some color on the plate. First of all, I love this green, like bright green, and also it gives a bit of an extra layer. I was a bit worried it would take over the flavor, but when you dip it, you can really taste first the strong sauce, like the jalapeno, then it comes like the inside with the salsa verde, and I think you can feel the flavor kind of like in different layers instead of just like everything together at the same time, which I think is great. So I hope you liked it. I hope at least you get some like idea, even if you don't try these exact same recipe, at least you got some ideas to try it and make your own gyozas with whatever flavor you want. So hope you liked the video. Press like, subscribe, activate the bell, all those kind of things, and see you in the next one.